Stop pretending this is normal. It's not. Half the country can't afford a $500 emergency. Over 38 million Americans don't have enough food. Medical bills are now the #1 cause of bankruptcy, and 1 in 10 adults are being chased by debt collectors. Meanwhile, the top 1% gained $12.4 trillion in wealth since 2020. You're not lazy. You're not bad with money. You're trapped in a system designed to keep you broke, stressed, and obedient. And the worst part? They're not even hiding it anymore. 10 people are working full-time and still living like they're homeless. You know what's insane? We used to say, just get a job. That was the advice. That was the American dream formula. Work hard, pay your dues, and you'll make it. But now, people are clocking in 40, 50, even 60 hours a week, and they're still living out of their cars or couch hopping like they're 19. This isn't laziness, it's economic entrapment. A recent survey by the Federal Reserve showed that nearly 37% of working Americans can't cover a $400 emergency. We've got full-time teachers donating plasma to buy groceries. Amazon warehouse workers sleeping in tents just to avoid a 2-hour commute. And mind you, Amazon is worth over $1 trillion. We have flight attendants living in their cars between shifts because rent in places like Denver or San Diego now eats up 80% of a monthly paycheck. You know what else? More than 11 million Americans now spend over 50% of their income on rent. That's beyond the rent burden threshold. And it's not just big cities. People in places like Boise, Idaho, and Greenville, South Carolina, are being priced out by hedge fund-backed property managers, hiking rents 25% overnight. You want to know what that looks like? That's families living in motels, trying to hold down 2 jobs while their kids do homework on McDonald's Wi-Fi. This isn't a fringe problem. This is middle class, working class, and everyone else in between, losing their grip on stability while corporate landlords post record profits. The average monthly rent in the U.S. is now over $2,050, and the median wage is stuck at $54,000 a year. Do the math. After taxes, insurance, and gas, that's nothing left for food, let alone savings or emergencies. People aren't living, they're barely surviving, and the worst part, we still tell them it's their fault. 9 basic healthcare has turned into a luxury item. Let me hit you with something dark. Over 100 million Americans now have some form of medical debt. That's nearly 1 in 3 adults. Just think about that. You could be doing everything right. Working, saving, raising a family, and one bad diagnosis, one accident, and boom, you're bankrupt. In fact, 2/3 of personal bankruptcies in America are caused by medical bills. And before you think this is just about the uninsured, no, this is with insurance. People are paying $1 $200 a month for premiums and still can't afford to go to the doctor because the deductible is $8,000. People are dying because they refuse to call an ambulance. I'm not making that up. A recent poll found 1 in 4 Americans have avoided emergency care because they didn't want a surprise bill that could wipe out their savings. Need insulin? That's $300 to $600/month, if you're not on the right plan. Got a toothache? Dental isn't covered. Enjoy that abscess. Mental health? Most therapists don't even take insurance anymore because they get reimbursed $30 a session while charging clients $175 out of pocket. So now we've got millions of Americans using GoFundMe as their health insurance, and more than 250,000 campaigns a year are for medical bills. That's not a healthcare system. That's a sick, twisted lottery where the house always wins and the players always lose. Meanwhile, CEOs of insurance companies like United Health and Cigna rake in tens of millions in bonuses, and hospital chains buy luxury real estate with their nonprofit tax status. In 2024, the U.S. spent $4.7 trillion on healthcare, more than any other country on Earth. But our outcomes? Worse than Poland. We've got a declining life expectancy and maternal mortality rates that look like a developing country. You want to survive in America? You'd better not get sick. Because once you do, the system will grind you down until there's nothing left. 8. American food is making people sick and nobody's talking about it. We need to have a serious conversation about what we're being fed because it's not just expensive, it's literally poisoning us. The U.S. now has the highest obesity rate in the developed world. 42% of adults are considered obese, and nearly 1 in 5 children. And that's not just about appearance. We're talking about chronic disease, diabetes, heart failure, autoimmune disorders, and even early-onset cancer. And it's not random. You walk into a grocery store in 2025, and 80% of the items on the shelf are ultra-processed garbage, chemical-laced, high-sugar, high-seed oil junk that's banned in other countries. Did you know that Red 40, a food dye linked to behavioral issues in kids, is banned in Europe but still found in American cereals, candies, even vitamins? The same goes for potassium bromate and BHA-BHT, additives labeled carcinogens overseas, but still allowed here because the FDA is asleep at the wheel, or more accurately, in bed with big food. You know what else? 10 companies control nearly all the food you see at the supermarket, and they spend billions lobbying Congress to keep the regulations toothless. Meanwhile, families are forced to eat cheap poison because real food is unaffordable. Organic apples? $2.49 each? A McDouble? Still $2.49. Guess which one fills your belly when you're broke? And don't even get me started on food deserts. Over 19 million Americans live in areas with no access to fresh produce, just Dollar Generals and gas station meals. That's why the average American now eats 60% of their calories from processed foods, and it's destroying us. Life expectancy is down. Cancer rates in millennials are rising fast. Gut health? Obliterated. And guess who profits? The same pharmaceutical companies selling you pills to fix the problems your food caused. It's a vicious billion-dollar loop. And the only way out? You'd have to grow your own food, drive an hour to a farmer's market, or spend your whole paycheck on organic groceries, and most people just can't. So yeah, Americans are getting sick. But it's not by accident. It's by design. 7 Americans are drowning in invisible taxes that no one talks about. You want to know what's bleeding people dry, and they don't even realize it? It's not just the IRS. It's the death by 1,000 cuts happening every single day through invisible taxes. And I don't mean just sales tax or income tax. I mean the unofficial taxes that have infiltrated everything. Let's break it down. You pay property taxes even if you don't own property. It's baked into your rent. You pay fees on every online purchase, every delivery, every app transaction. Service fees, fuel surcharges, convenience fees, and don't forget the processing fee just for paying your bill. On top of that, you're taxed on your phone plan, your internet, your energy usage, and every single one of those bills has quietly crept up 15% to 40% since 2020. Even tipping has turned into a tax. You can't buy a coffee without being prompted to tip 25%, and if you say no, you feel guilty, like you're hurting the worker, even though it's corporate greed that created this mess. You tip, you pay the fees, you pay the taxes, and then you still get hit with inflation pricing. Inflation. Let's talk about that. It's a shadow tax. Your dollars are worth 17% less than they were in 2020, and some groceries are up over 70%. That's not transitory. That's a financial mugging. The price of eggs doubled, rent shot up, car insurance has gone up 21% just this year, and people are wondering why their paychecks are disappearing before the 15th. Because you're not just taxed once, you're taxed at every stage of the economy. And you know who's not paying any of this? Billion-dollar corporations. In 2023 alone, 55 of the most profitable U.S. companies paid $0 in federal income tax. Some even got refunds. Meanwhile, everyday Americans are losing 40 to 50% of their income before they even see their paycheck. This isn't capitalism. This is economic extraction, and it's reaching a point where there's nothing left to take. You're working harder, making less, and being taxed for the privilege of surviving. 6. The new American dream is just not to be homeless. Let's stop pretending. The American dream is no longer about owning a home, building wealth, or retiring with dignity. The new dream? Just making it another month without becoming homeless. I'm not exaggerating. There are over 653,000 homeless people in the U.S. as of 2023, the highest number ever recorded by HUD. And that's just the people being counted. The real number? Easily over 1 million. When you include the hidden homeless, the ones sleeping in cars, motels, or crashing with family because they got priced out. And here's the kicker, most of them have jobs. In fact, in cities like Los Angeles and Phoenix, 40% of the homeless population has employment. Some even have 2 jobs. But their wages simply can't compete with the rental market, where prices have surged more than 30% in the last 3 years in many cities. And it's not just big metros. Even in rural America, people are living in campers on relatives' land because mobile homes are selling for $80,000 and lot rents are up 15%. Meanwhile, corporations like BlackRock and Invitation Homes are scooping up single-family homes and turning them into rentals, raising prices and killing ownership opportunities for entire generations. Between 2010 and 2023, investor purchases of homes rose 400%, and now in some cities, 1 in 4 homes is owned by Wall Street. So what happens? Millennials and Gen Z are stuck renting forever. Boomers are cashing out and downsizing into RVs, and new construction, all luxury. Nobody's building affordable housing because it doesn't make enough money. And now rents are hitting $3,000 a month in places with average salaries of $50K. You either pay half your income in rent, or you live with 3 roommates in your 30s. And if you get evicted, good luck. Once you're out, getting back into the system with an eviction on your record is like crawling through fire. So yeah, the new American dream is simple. Please God, don't let me lose my roof this month. 5. The middle class is disappearing. By design. Here's something most people don't understand. The collapse of the middle class isn't a side effect. It's the plan. America used to be a place where if you worked hard, saved a little, and stayed out of trouble, you could build a stable life. Not rich, not poor, just okay. But in the last 40 years, that safety net has been systematically shredded. Since 1980, 90% of income growth has gone to the top 10% of earners. Meanwhile, the bottom 90% have barely seen their incomes budge when adjusted for inflation, and the cost of everything has exploded. In 1970, a single-income household could afford a mortgage, 2 cars, and raise a family. In 2025, 2 full-time incomes don't cut it. And don't let anyone fool you. It's not just inflation, it's outsourcing, it's deregulation, it's the deliberate dismantling of unions, pensions, and worker protections that used to guarantee a middle-class life. CEOs used to make 20 times what their workers made. Now, try 400 times. Stock buybacks, tax havens, offshored labor, the whole system is built to funnel wealth up, and guess what? It worked. The top 1% now own more wealth than the entire middle class combined. And it's not just money, it's power, it's policy. It's why student loan forgiveness gets blocked, but billion-dollar corporate bailouts sail through in a week. It's why healthcare and housing are unaffordable, but we can fund unlimited wars without blinking. The system doesn't want a strong middle class. It wants cheap labor, high debt, and just enough hope to keep you grinding. They call it the gig economy. But it's really just economic serfdom. You rent your home, lease your car, finance your phone, and owe the IRS every April. But you own nothing. And when the middle class disappears, democracy goes with it. Because a country without a middle class isn't a democracy, it's a plantation. And right now, we're the ones picking cotton in digital fields. 4. Schools are collapsing, and no one knows where the children will end up. You know what's wild? We're spending over $900 billion a year on public education in this country. And yet somehow, American schools are falling apart like abandoned buildings. And I'm not talking metaphorically, I'm talking literally. There are classrooms in Philadelphia, Chicago, and Baltimore where students wear coats and gloves indoors in winter because there's no heat. Some schools still have lead pipes from the 1950s. Others have mold infestations, collapsing ceilings, and rat droppings in the cafeteria. You think this is rare? The Government Accountability Office (GAO) recently reported that more than half of public schools in the U.S. need major repairs just to be safe. Half. And it's not just the buildings, it's the people. Teachers are leaving in droves. Over 300,000 public educators quit in just the last couple of years, many of them mid-career, walking away from their pensions because they can't survive the burnout or the low pay. A brand new teacher in Arizona, making $38,000 a year before taxes. Meanwhile, they're expected to buy their own classroom supplies, control 35 students at a time, act as social workers, security guards, and grief counselors, all while being under surveillance by parents, school boards, and online mobs. There's no respect, no resources, and no path forward. And the result? Schools are cutting arts, cutting sports, cutting libraries, while kids sit in front of outdated computers, learning to take standardized tests, designed to funnel them into debt-ridden colleges or minimum-wage jobs. Some high schools are eliminating teachers altogether and replacing them with video lectures and AI bots. And let's be real, wealthy parents have already pulled their kids out. They're in private schools or homeschooling pods, while the rest are left to rot in a public system that looks more like a pipeline to poverty than a foundation for success. We're not preparing children for the future, we're setting them up to fail, and when a country abandons its kids, you already know the adults are next. 3. Crime is rising, but only if you're poor. Here's something the media never really explains. We're not getting more dangerous. We're getting more unequal. And when inequality rises, crime doesn't just follow, it explodes. But not in the ways you think. It's not about the scary headline-grabbing crimes they talk about on cable news. It's about desperation crimes, poverty crimes, and corporate crimes that never get punished. Right now, theft under $1,000 has been decriminalized or deprioritized in a dozen major cities, and businesses are shuttering stores in places like San Francisco, Portland, and New York, not because of one big wave of violent crime, but because of constant, low-level looting that police departments no longer have the manpower to stop. But ask yourself, what's driving people to steal toothpaste, diapers, meat, laundry detergent? That's not greed, that's survival. People are literally shoplifting just to live, because their paychecks don't stretch far enough to feed their kids. And at the same time, white-collar criminals steal billions in wage theft, tax fraud, and insider trading, and they never see jail time. A poor person gets caught stealing a can of baby formula? That's a felony. But a CEO lays off 10,000 workers, tanks the company's pension fund, and walks away with a $50 million bonus? That's just business. Meanwhile, police departments across the country are understaffed, underfunded, or just plain demoralized. 911 response times are up 20% to 50% in many urban areas. In New Orleans, it takes an average of 2.5 hours for police to respond to a 911 call. You better hope you're not bleeding. And now people are turning to private security, gated communities, concealed carry permits, because they've given up on the system protecting them. But again, that's only if you can afford it. If you can't, you're stuck in the chaos, living in fear, watching the security guard at Walgreens get knocked out while the pharmacy gets robbed, praying your car doesn't get broken into, praying your landlord doesn't evict you next. It's not just that crime is rising, it's that justice is for sale, and the people with money already bought it. 2. Retirement is a lie, and everyone knows it now. You want to know one of the quietest tragedies happening right now? It's not just that people are struggling in their prime, it's that retirement is officially dead, and no one even tries to pretend otherwise anymore. For decades, Americans were told, work hard, save up, and one day you'll retire with dignity. But let me ask you, retire on what? The average 401k balance for someone aged 55-64 is just $207,000. That sounds like a lot, until you realize it barely covers 4 years of basic living expenses in most parts of the country. And for half of all workers, the number is zero. Nothing saved, nothing invested, nothing left. Social Security? That was supposed to be the backup plan. But Social Security is projected to run a deficit by 2034, and the payout cuts are already being debated. The average monthly Social Security check today is $1,907, but good luck living on that when rent alone is $1,800/month in many states. And now we're watching boomers unretire at record rates. People in their late 60s, even 70s, are applying for part-time retail and warehouse jobs. Not because they want to, but because they have no choice. They're draining their savings, watching their retirement accounts get eaten by inflation, and realizing that even Medicare doesn't cover half of what they need. Dental? Not covered. Vision? Nope. Long-term care? Forget about it. The average nursing home costs $108,000 here now, and most families can't afford it unless they sell their house or drain every last dime. And Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z? They already know retirement's a fantasy. Pensions are extinct, wages are stagnant, rent is rising, and nobody has enough left over at the end of the month to even save. So what do people do? They gamble in crypto. They play with meme stocks. They side hustle until 2 a.m., hoping that maybe somehow they'll break out. But deep down, everyone feels it. There's no exit. The system was never designed to let everyone retire. It was designed to keep you working until you die, or until the cost of being alive bankrupts you into submission. 1. The system isn't broken. It was built this way on purpose. Look, it's time we stop pretending this is all just a big accident. Like somehow every institution in America just happened to collapse at the same time. That maybe if we just voted harder, or worked longer hours, or clipped a few more coupons, we could fix it. No, this isn't broken. This is working exactly as designed. And once you accept that, it all starts to make sense. The debt, the homelessness, the medical bankruptcies, the student loans, the crumbling infrastructure, the corporate landlords, the poisoned food, the vanishing middle class, none of that is a coincidence. It's all part of a system that was engineered to extract as much as possible from you and funnel it upward into the hands of a shrinking elite. Think about it. Every crisis is profitable now. Housing collapse? The hedge funds buy up the foreclosures. Medical debt? A trillion-dollar industry. College tuition inflation? Backed by government loans with 7% interest. Food shortages? Opportunity for price gouging. Climate disasters? Great for disaster capitalism. War? Always a boom for defense stocks. Your misery is someone else's portfolio growth. And the people running the show, they're not suffering. While 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, the top 1% increased their wealth by over $12 trillion since 2020. Let that sink in. During a pandemic, during lockdowns, while small businesses vanished and families were evicted, the richest people on earth got richer than ever before. Why? Because they own the system. They fund the politicians. They write the legislation. They shape the media narrative, so you blame the poor, blame immigrants, blame lazy people, blame everyone but the real architects. And what's truly evil is that they give you just enough hope to keep grinding. They let you dream about buying a house, or retiring, or starting a business, but they move the goalposts every year. They don't want you dead. They want you desperate. Desperate enough to take the lowest paying job. Desperate enough to work weekends. Desperate enough to say nothing when your rent spikes, your benefits shrink, and your rights disappear. Because a desperate population is an obedient population. So no, this isn't a glitch in the matrix. This is the matrix. And if we don't start seeing it for what it is, if we keep hoping the people who profit from our suffering are going to save us, we're not just going to struggle. We're not going to survive.